I wish I could give you the perfect advice on whether it's better to convert existing data or to go ahead and import data from a new list or to just start completely from scratch. There really are pros and cons either way, so I can't answer that question for you. But once you've seen how to convert information, it's also a good idea to know how to import it. Importing information can be because you're starting a company, but other people wanted to have input who don't know how to use QuickBooks, or they want to have input and you're just managing QuickBooks. But regardless, we have this information in an Excel file, and so I want to go ahead and import it into my company file. I already have You Got It training open. This can either be the file that's already in your folder or the one that you converted. The content actually isn't important. It's actually the processes that we're going through. The next step, of course, would be to go up to the File menu, to choose Utilities, and this time, instead of converting a file, we want to choose to import. And we're going to choose an Excel file. Actually, importing information into virtually any piece of software using any format is always the same basic process. We just happen to be using an Excel file. QuickBooks wants to help us as much as they can, and it says this wizard and a set of formatted Excel spreadsheets will guide you step by step to add your data. So you can have a little video you can watch, but you're already watching me, so you probably don't need that one. Or you can just select the type of data you want to add to QuickBooks. Customers, vendors, or products that you sell. We're going to talk about vendors, so we'll specifically look at this button. It says add information about anyone you pay except employees. By doing this, this will actually use an already formatted Excel spreadsheet that's going to open, and we can copy our data into it. But what if I've already created my own spreadsheet? Then you want to move over to the right-hand side, and whether you thought so or not, you actually are going to use an advanced import feature. We'll go ahead and give that a click, and at this point we'll be able to select the file that we already have created. I'll click on Browse, navigate to my folder, and then choose the folder that I want to include. I happen to have two different Excel files here, and I did this just as an example for what you need to watch out for. If you're using Office 2007, then you can choose the one that ends in .xlsx, or when you roll over it, it says Microsoft Office Excel Worksheet. If you're using any version of Office prior to Office 2007, then you need to use the one that ends in .xlx. And if you roll over it, it says Microsoft Office Excel 97 to 2003. They're exactly the same file, but depending on what software you have, you may not be able to use the Office 2007 version. I'll go ahead and use this one, and I'll double click. That populates the file with the file I've selected, and then the next step is that I need to choose a specific worksheet. Remember that Excel workbooks can have more than one worksheet, and so we have to tell it specifically which page, if you will, that we want to include. Fortunately, I named this appropriately, so it's easy to find. My recommendation if you're going to be creating your own Excel worksheets to import is to name them with vendors, customers, or items, so when you're importing, it's easy to find the one you want. You then need to tell it if the first row, row 1 in your worksheet, is a header row. In other words, does it have the field names in it? Mine does, so I'll leave that selected. And the next thing I need to do is come down and do what's called a mapping. Mapping is simply telling which field in Excel equates to which field in QuickBooks, because they're usually not named exactly the same thing. If they were, then it would be very easy. Now it just takes a few extra clicks. I'll click on the drop-down, and since I don't have any saved mappings, I'll say Add New. If I already had saved some mappings, in other words, if I had created some vendor information already and saved that, I could use or select that one from the drop-down list. Instead, Add New is my only choice, really, and that will open the Mappings dialog. I'll give this one a simple name called Excel Vendors. And then, of course, I have to tell it what type of import I'm going to be doing. And that one by the name is Vendor. And once we make that selection, on the left-hand side, you'll see what QuickBooks calls the available fields. And then we'll be able to map them to our fields within our Excel spreadsheet. I'll start by clicking under Name. And then I'll choose what the name is for my spreadsheet. It happens to be called Vendor. Once we get those set side by side, that's the mapping that it needs. So QuickBooks now knows what's called a name field in QuickBooks is actually the same as what's called vendor in my spreadsheet. I'm going to click on this drop down again just so we can see what we have. Vendor, print as, address, city, state, and zip. Let's see if we can find how to map those other fields. If I scroll down in the list, we do see that we have address 1. That would be a good thing to use using our address field. And if we continue to scroll down, we also see print on check as. What I'm not seeing is city, state, and zip separated out. So this means I either need to go back into Excel and put all of the address information into one field, or once it's imported, I need to go into each of my entries and add that information. You need to decide which one is easier. It really depends on how much information you have. In my case, I'm only importing 3 vendors, so it'll be easy enough to go in and add city, state, and zip separately. Honestly, I'll tell you that for most of you, when you're importing a majority of your vendors, it will be better to stop at this point, open up your Excel file, and put them back in the way that they need to be for QuickBooks. That will save you a lot of time trying to match lists back and forth, as well as typing. But in this case, I do have print on check as, that's equivalent to print as. We'll make that choice. I'll go ahead and save my mappings. Now I see that that is the name that is chosen for the mappings I'm going to use. You have an option to preview, or you can just click import. It warns us that once we import, we will not be able to undo it, so we'll go ahead and say OK. And when it's finished, hopefully it will give you a good news, and it will say, import is finished, 3 records have been imported, and 0 had errors. Naturally, if you had errors, you would want to go back and make a comparison to find out which ones were not imported, and either re-import them or manually enter them. At this point, I'm very happy everything came in, so I'll say OK. It closes all of the dialog boxes and brings me back to my file.